The answer to the question of what causes long-run economic growth is that there need to be changes predominantly in productivity, long-term, long-lasting changes in productivity, which make it less expensive to produce goods and services than before. The result of that would be for long-run aggregate supply to shift to the right, short-run to shift to the right, to create a new potential output that lies to the right of the old potential output. If you don't have changes in productivity, if you see an increase in output caused by a shift in aggregate demand, then you have what's known as a fluctuation. And here's how it works. If we were to follow some sort of expansionary fiscal policy, say cutting taxes or increasing government spending, what we would expect to see is the aggregate demand curve shifting to the right. And when the aggregate demand curve shifts to the right, we would see a new short-run equilibrium. We'd have greater output than before, but what we have now is an inflationary gap situation. And we know that left alone, the inflationary gap is going to correct itself. And the way it's going to correct itself is by having short-run aggregate supply shift back to the left due to an increase in the wages. So in the short run, wages are sticky, and we stay here at Y1. But eventually, in the long run, workers are going to want higher wages. That's going to cause the cost of business to go up and short-run aggregate supply to shift to the left. And when it does, we have a new equilibrium. And that new equilibrium point is right back at the original potential output. So if the government were to attempt to increase the economy by boosting or stimulating aggregate demand at one time only, then we would see no change in aggregate output in the long run, just simply an increase in the price level. The only way to keep the economy from adjusting back to its original potential is if the government were to continue to stimulate the economy and continue to push aggregate demand to the right. But it's not really growth in the sense that it's not going to stay that way if you stop stimulating the economy. Again, the only way for there to be permanent growth that doesn't sort of readjust back to the old potential output is to have this short run and long run aggregate supply curves shift to the right, because then it creates a new equilibrium that doesn't require any sort of reshifting, because it's right back where short run aggregate supply, aggregate demand, and long run aggregate supply are intersecting together.